We have another very important, very interesting presentation now coming up. Miss Dinesha Ruanti Perera. She's going to talk about a very relevant, very hot topic these days, that is Israel Defense Force, IDF, a retrospective study for prospective regional defense challenges. Dinesha is a lecturer in this prestigious Kotalawala Defense University, and she is a lawyer, attorney at law by profession, and called to the bar in December 2012. And I was wondering why she selected this topic, but now I know the answer. She has worked in the capacity of a research assistant and a coordinator at Tel Aviv University in Israel. So I'm sure you are well suited to speak to us on this very important topic facing our world today. Okay, your father was the ambassador there. Right, okay. So, Dinesha, over to you.
Thank you, sir. Thanks a lot, sir, for that kind words of introduction. Ladies and gentlemen, and the chair and all other presenters today, my topic is the Israeli Defense Force and the retrospective study for prospective regional defense challenges. I was going to acknowledge the fact that I was doing the research at the Tel Aviv University under the Department of Social and Security Studies and Diplomacy, but you anyway anticipated the answer, and so thanks a lot for that, sir. Looking at the Israeli Defense Force, ladies and gentlemen, a new perspective, because the IDF is having one of its empowered dynamic objectives to prepare for defense and move towards counter-attack. Of course, they always have an operational concept, and with today's perspective, we have got to see that there is something called the protective edge. Protective edge even in today's military tactics that they are using. So they always have both offensive as well as defensive strategies that they use. And according to the Internal Affairs Ministry of Israel, it said that there was an average attack from the West Bank to Israel border declining from 26 to 3%. So that kind of a statistic would clearly show that because of one particular reason, the number of attacks have been declining. So ladies and gentlemen, my paper is really focusing on the impact of the security fence, that is the one which intercepts Palestine and Israel. According to the Israeli Supreme Court, there has been a very critical statement made, and it is said that Israel is facing a difficult time against war, which is also causing rampant terrorism. And it is, of course, going always towards their right of self-defense. I've got some pictures to just highlight the real positioning of the bordering lines between the Jerusalem, basically West Jerusalem, and looking at the Palestine or the Gaza Strip in that place. But what I'm mainly going to focus on is the operational strategy, because there are three perspectives that the operational strategy focuses on. Firstly, it is talking about the minimum disruption for the population density, because Israel, although it is a small state, it has a considerable population, and I'll come towards the statistics at the latter stages. Also, there is infrastructure procurement, because in order to commence and continue a war, there is a lot of requirement for infrastructure. And also, last but not least, the humanitarian implications, because there is a lot of internalization of cost of loss of lives that take place at the end of some kind of attack that either parties will launch on each other. So according to my literature review, I would be focusing on certain perspectives, and the first would be the religious implications, because first of all, although there is physical trespass, either from Palestine to Israel or vice versa, when a person, a terrorist or any other person, even for daily requirements, if they try to move across the border, there is a physical trespass, but always their law ensures that there is some criminal sanction that is parallelly going with it. So they are basically a trespasser, and that attracts criminal penalties and punishment. Now, the security criteria will tell that these checkpoints are made in such a way that even the pictures unfolded that there is 97% of the chain links in that particular fence, but only 3% is concrete. So that kind of construction itself shows that there is a possibility of intrusion of the whatever the threats that may happen, whether it is physical threats or even missile attacks, which my research at the moment does not cover on any air-related attacks. It is only based on land. Then looking at the humanitarian criteria, I will come in the future. Now the economic implications, this word that I have used is Yotef Yerushalayim. That means it is the center for the society's fabric and the social fabric of a society. So Israeli, the country itself is quite religious. And you get the Jews, but amongst the Jews you get the Arabs who are also Jews of Israel. And you find so many Israelis multiplying around the region of Middle East. So I'm focusing on the Arab Jews and the Israeli Jews, because in the state of Israel, you find both Arabs and Israelis. So the wall, when the wall has been constructed, it has been giving a threat to two aspects. One thing is the transit of the passengers. There can be either daily dwellers who move up and down for daily requirements. Or, on the other hand, you do find people who might come on religious visits, maybe either the Christians for Christmas or even Ramadan season, where they keep moving up and down. So this wall has been quite a constraint for even the movement of such people. Now, there is sometimes situations where you may see that they are really finding it difficult, so they have to find alternative methods of entering in and out. So this separation is kind of a break between the communities, because certainly it has had bad implications at the end. Looking at the security implications, as I mentioned before, there are unlawful migrants, or rather entrants in this case. The very important perspective of that would be that sometimes you might be a trespasser, or on the other side, you might have only got a license to enter into a country or into a border. So if you're not with a license, basically you can be criminally punished. And there are three basic laws that operate in this perspective. One is the emergency regulations, and also the criminal procedure of the both countries, and there are some administrative related decrees. So I would like to highlight on two important things. And the first is that when a trespasser is captured by the Israeli military authorities, they have the right to reprimand the person. But unlike in Sri Lanka, where we need to directly produce the person into the magistrate court within 48 hours, that requirement in the Israeli legislation, it is not mentioned. So there is a loophole there, which means the authorities could retain the person for a reasonable time without giving any legal remedy for that individual. So that is a little bit of a constraint upon the people who get caught as migrants or either people infiltrating into either side of the border. Then human trafficking. Because while I was doing the study, I came to find out that there were a lot of human smuggling taking place, and sometimes the Palestinian border authorities check each vehicle because they used to traffic people out and in. So that kind of implication might be constrained due to this. And after all, the status quo of Israel, that means its integrity as a state, and also its political imbalances take place after this kind of activities happen. The methodology I used to gather further information was sampling 30 Arab Jews and Israeli Jews. But I need to admit the fact that since my stay there was for about 7 months, it did not really give me the opportunity to speak to them in the language Hebrew. So because it is not easy to catch that in a Hebrew language. But still, with the help of the translators, I got an opportunity to find out as to how they could be really facilitated in this regard. And also, one other problem that came across was the security constraints, because at that time also the war had already commenced. So movement was little constrained. So there were some problems. Nevertheless, I found out that the conflict between Israeli and the West Bank, that itself had an implication. And with this border, that was made more complicated. Furthermore, I was able to talk to certain the private sector companies there, which revealed the fact that more than insurance in Israel, they look at the social security mechanism for two reasons. Because one thing is, more than the ability of providing insurance, the social security looks at the compensation, which is much cost effective. And also, they are more prone to combating any reduction of threats, because they are always looking at the risk assessment in a very critical sense. And there are social security legislations available which is not really implemented in most of the other countries in the Asian region, which I revealed in the comparative study. And of course, the border lines or the wall is always monitored by both military and the police as well as the Israeli Defense Force members. So now the checkpoints that they man, statistics show that with this complication of the problem, the checkpoints they man has been increasing, and they had to move into each point which they think is critical. So it had been a greater humanitarian requirement for the military to give more human need for those requirements. And also the core military values. Now, Israeli Defense Force, the Act of Israeli Defense Force, or the law, specifically talks about intelligence making, because even in our military legislation, we do not talk about anything called intelligence making. But here they are specifically, and they give an interpretation as to what intelligence making is. So there they have clearly said that it is a discussion among the people and original thinking, but also they have talked about informal decision making. But they have critically analyzed that, because informal decision making in a military might be critical because it is not implementable decision. Also talking about the demographic implications, I came to understand that there are two aspects. One thing is trends, because the worldwide Jews population has been so much widely increasing, as I mentioned before, and also proportionately you found that there is an increased terror attack taking place there. So that kind of situation, how it should be countered, was discussed in the paper. According to Ariel Sharon, there had been a statement made by him that there is a shrinking majority but a growing minorities of Jews, resulting in high risk of war. So in conclusion, I would like to say that although there is a threat, now in the recent days, although the wall existed, there were certain attacks on the Jerusalem area where there were a bus was attacked by basically a physical bomb attack. So with the wall, still there is a risk of the war, and still there is damage. So impact analysis shows that the war has not really assessed the required risk assessment. And also, Israel also is an agriculture-related country, which is highly considering the benefits of agriculture, and they want to give dividends to all. So they have the agricultural crossways in the wall, which means that the Palestinians can move towards the agricultural lands, because there are certain agricultural lands which are occupied by the Israeli people but belonging to the Palestinians. So ownership concerns have been facilitated. And also looking at the term, there was a kind of a challenge, or a rather dilemma, I would say, that the term security wall could be amended, because the pro-Israelis talk about a separation wall, but the anti-Israelis talk about it as an apartheid wall. So the ICJ, of course, in its voting, the International Court of Justice told that the wall construction is completely illegal. But in order to preserve both Israeli and Palestine's integrity, the wall is required, was the overruled decision that the ICJ gave. In conclusion, I would like to quote a statement by the Prime Minister of Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu. We extend our hands in peace to our neighbor, but we are always ready to defend ourselves. In Israeli Hebrew, they say shalom for peace, and I wish that the Middle East, and through my research, could make peace in that nation and the region. Thank you.